Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Sunday, July 27th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will bring a high of 86.1 degrees and a low of 62.1 degrees. It's a pleasant summer day, offering comfortable temperatures for any outdoor activities you might have planned. Coming up on Alex's News, we'll delve into the complex reasons behind the global divisions surrounding the International Criminal Court's war crimes warrants, examining the differing perspectives from around the world. We'll also unpack how Texas has ignited a widespread national dispute over mapping and what that could mean for the country. All these stories and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning, everyone. We begin our broadcast today with a truly significant development in international law that has sent diplomatic ripples across the globe. The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for key figures in the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Joining us to unwrap this complex story is our reporter, Ethan. Ethan, can you set the scene for us?
Grace, it's certainly a weighty matter. As of today, July 27th, 2025, the International Criminal Court, or ICC, has indeed issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his former defense minister Yoav Gallant, and a senior Hamas leader, Mohammed Deif. The charges laid against them are serious alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. This has truly sparked an intense debate over international legal obligations.
War crimes and crimes against humanity are incredibly grave accusations. Can you explain what these charges entail specifically, and what the process was leading to these warrants?
Absolutely, Grace. Think of the ICC as a court of last resort, investigating and prosecuting individuals for the gravest international crimes when national courts are unwilling or unable to do so. The ICC prosecutor, Karim Khan, first announced his intention to seek these warrants back in May 2024, and a pre-trial chamber of the court gave its approval in November 2024. The court found what it calls reasonable grounds to believe these individuals bear criminal responsibility for crimes committed since the Hamas-led attack on Israel on October 7, 2023.
And what are the specific allegations against the Israeli leaders?
For Prime Minister Netanyahu and Mr. Gallant, the warrants specifically cite alleged crimes against humanity and war crimes committed in the Gaza Strip from at least October 8, 2023. The charges are quite stark. They include starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, which alleges an intentional deprivation of essentials like food, water, medicine, and fuel. There are also charges of intentionally directing attacks against a civilian population, murder, other inhumane acts, and persecution. It is a very serious legal net that has been cast.
That certainly sounds dire. On the other side, what about the charges against the Hamas leader Mohammed Deif?
Mohammed Deif, who is the head of Hamas's armed wing, faces equally harrowing charges. These relate to alleged crimes against humanity and war crimes committed in Israel and the Gaza Strip on and after October 7, 2023. His specific charges include murder and extermination, taking hostages, rape and other forms of sexual violence, torture, and cruel treatment. It's also worth noting, Grace, that the ICC prosecutor had initially sought warrants for two other senior Hamas leaders, Yahya Sinwar and Ismail Haniyeh, but those requests were withdrawn after their reported deaths. While Israel has claimed to have killed Mohammed Deif, Hamas has not confirmed his death, and the ICC has rejected Israel's request to cancel the arrest warrants and suspend the investigation. So, for the ICC, the warrant for Deif remains active.
These warrants have clearly sent shockwaves globally. How have the involved parties and other major nations reacted?
The reactions have been as varied as they are strong, Grace. Israeli officials have vehemently condemned the ICC's decision, labeling it disgraceful, anti-Semitic, and an outrageous decision. Prime Minister Netanyahu himself stated that Israel rejects with disgust the absurd and false actions, and that, quote, "There is nothing more just than the war that Israel has been waging in Gaza." Hamas, for its part, has also denounced the move, arguing it equates the victim with the executioner. while maintaining its right to resist what it calls Israeli occupation.
And what about the United States, a key ally of Israel but not an ICC member state?
The U.S. has been very vocal in its criticism. President Joe Biden called the move outrageous and asserted, quote, "Whatever this prosecutor might imply, there is no equivalence, none, between Israel and Hamas," end quote. It's a very strong stance. It's also interesting to recall that the Trump administration had previously imposed sanctions on ICC officials in response to this very investigation. However, a federal judge blocked the enforcement of those sanctions in July 2025, ruling them an unconstitutional infringement on free speech. So, a bit of a legal boomerang there.
What about the European Union? Do these warrants obligate its member states?
They absolutely do, Grace. The EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, has stated that these warrants are binding on all 27 member countries, who are, in theory, obliged to implement the court's decisions. However, the practical implementation has certainly varied, leading to a bit of a diplomatic tightrope walk.
Can you give us some examples of how different EU countries are handling this obligation?
Certainly. Hungary, for instance, under Prime Minister Viktor Orban, has explicitly refused to comply, calling the warrants shameful and absurd. In a clear act of defiance, he invited Netanyahu to visit Hungary in April 2025. That was just 90 days ago. Netanyahu did visit without arrest, and Orban's government has even announced its intention to withdraw from the Rome Statute, which is the treaty that established the ICC. This has prompted an ICC referral to its oversight body for non-compliance. Then you have Poland. After initially affirming its obligation, the Polish government adopted a resolution in January 2025 to ensure Netanyahu could visit for the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau without arrest, a decision criticized by a former ICC head as political. Germany, while supporting the ICC, has also maintained ambiguity, with Chancellor Friedrich Merz stating Berlin would find ways and means for him to visit Germany and leave again without being arrested. France even suggested in November 2024 that Israeli leaders might be protected by immunity rules applicable to states not party to the ICC. So there is clearly a spectrum of compliance.
It sounds like some countries are trying to have their cake and eat it too, so to speak, supporting the ICC in principle but finding ways around these specific warrants. Are there any countries that are taking a harder line on enforcement?
Indeed, Grace. There is a group called the Hague Group formed in January 2025, consisting of 9 countries including Namibia, Malaysia, and South Africa. They've pledged to defend international law and fulfill their obligations concerning the warrants. Other nations like Slovenia, Portugal, and Switzerland have also publicly affirmed their intention to comply. Meanwhile, human rights groups like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have lauded the ICC's decision as a breakthrough for international justice, and a UK poll indicated over half of Britons believe Israel is committing war crimes in Gaza.
So, what does all this mean for the international travel of Netanyahu and Gallant?
These warrants have significantly restricted their international travel, Grace, especially to the 124 ICC member states. Netanyahu has largely avoided traveling to states indicating enforcement. His only known visit to an ICC member state since the warrants was to Hungary, as we discussed, where his non-arrest was guaranteed. He has, however, traveled to the United States, which, as you pointed out, is not an ICC member state. Yoav Gallant was reported to have traveled to the U.S. in late November 2024, but there are no public records of him traveling to any ICC member state since. So their travel is certainly much more limited.
Ethan, beyond these specific warrants, how does this fit into the broader context of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and regional tensions?
It's all interconnected, Grace. The ICC's actions are set against a backdrop of a severe humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Reports highlight the dire situation, with the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry claiming nearly 60,000 killed and over 144,000 wounded since October 7, 2023. Gaza officials have also reported Palestinians killed while waiting for aid and others dying of hunger, despite the IDF announcing daily humanitarian pauses. The World Food Program stated it has enough food en route to feed Gaza's entire population for 3 months, The crisis is frequently described as a, quote, gradual genocide and, quote, widespread human rights violations by Israel, characterized by systematic deprivation, destruction of basic living conditions, and targeted attacks on civilians, hospitals, and places of worship. Furthermore, Grace, beyond the ICC warrants, Israel also faces a separate genocide case at the International Court of Justice, which is another body entirely. And a former U.S. State Department spokesman from a previous administration admitted that Israel had, without a doubt, committed war crimes in Gaza. So these ICC warrants are just one part of a larger, evolving legal and humanitarian landscape.
Ethan, thank you for really breaking down this complex and crucial story for us. It certainly puts the weight of international law into perspective.
My pleasure, Grace.
That was story 1 of 2 this morning. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back, everyone. We turn now to a brewing political storm that could redefine the legislative landscape across the country. It is a high-stakes battle over congressional maps that has ignited a furious back and forth between states. For more on this, we go to our political correspondent, Chloe, who has been following every twist and turn. Chloe, this seems much more than a typical redraw. What is happening?
Grace, you are absolutely right. This is not your grandfather's redistricting. The political fireworks started in Texas, where Governor Greg Abbott, according to NBC News, called a special legislative session this July to redraw state congressional maps. This is mid-decade, highly unusual.
Mid-decade redistricting sounds like changing the rules mid-game. Why now?
Precisely. It is a strategic move to bolster the Republican Party's narrow majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. As ABC News has uncovered, the goal is to potentially secure up to 5 new Republican-leaning seats from Texas's current 38 congressional districts.
And the justification for this unscheduled session?
Governor Abbott cited, quote, constitutional concerns raised by the U.S. Department of Justice. Quote, according to ABC News, the Trump Justice Department instructed Texas to redraw 4 specific districts currently held by Black or Latino Democrats.
So this is legally motivated?
That is the official line. However, nonpartisan legal experts, including Harvard Law School's Guy Uriel E. Charles, as reported by Democracy Docket, suggests this justification is a thinly veiled pretext, contradicting Texas's prior claims that its 2021 maps were drawn, quote, blind to race, quote. The Legal Defense Fund also warns this rushed process risks diluting minority voting power.
And how is California responding to this Lone Star State maneuvering?
California Governor Gavin Newsom has entered the fray with a bold threat, Grace. He has declared this a, quote, 5-alarm fire for democracy, quote, and a, quote, fight fire with fire, quote, moment. According to the Los Angeles Times, Newsom is threatening to redraw California's own congressional map to favor Democrats.
But doesn't California have an independent redistricting commission created specifically to prevent partisan gerrymandering?
It does, Grace. California voters in 2008 and 2010 transferred line drawing authority away from politicians. Newsom is reportedly exploring 2 main options to circumvent this. One is a ballot measure, asking voters to amend the state constitution. The other is a novel legal interpretation, arguing state law might allow the legislature to draw maps between commission cycles.
And what is the reaction to Newsom's threat within California?
It is sparking fierce debate, even among Los Angeles Times columnists. Some support it, while others call it a, quote, bad move, quote, warning of a, quote, gerrymandering war, quote. Common Cause has stated it would fight any attempt by Newsom to bypass the independent commission.
This clearly has national implications. Are other states joining this redistricting duel?
Absolutely, Grace. Texas's actions have caused a ripple effect. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, according to NBC News, has called Texas's move, quote, cheating, quote, and says, quote, everything is on the table, quote. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy called Texas's actions, quote, deplorable, quote, stating Democrats, quote, don't have a choice, quote, but to respond.
So, The dominoes are falling, politically speaking. Is mid-decade redistricting even legal?
It is, Grace, though often controversial. The U.S. Constitution does not prohibit it. The Supreme Court affirmed its legality for partisan gain in the 2006 case of Lulac versus Perry. Texas's own 2003 remap, which flipped 6 congressional seats for Republicans, is a key precedent.
Chloe, what is the current status of all of this? Are maps being redrawn as we speak?
As of late July 2025, the Texas legislature is holding public hearings, but no new congressional maps have been passed. Similarly, no Democratic-led states, including California, have taken formal steps yet. Their actions appear contingent on what Texas ultimately does. This is truly a high-stakes game of political chess, Grace, with the 2026 midterms looming large.
It certainly sounds like a redistricting rumble. Chloe, thank you for breaking down this complex and evolving story for us. We appreciate you keeping us in the loop.
My pleasure, Grace.
And just to reiterate, our reporting today drew from insights provided by NBC News, the Los Angeles Times, ABC News, the Texas Tribune, CBS News, KView.com, Democracy Docket, electionlawblog.org, NAACPLDF.org, AP News, Politico.com, Ballotpedia.org, LWVC.org, SFChronicle.com, SFStandard.com, ReformCalifornia.org, Time.com, CenterForPolitics.org, Courthouse News, Wikipedia.org, Justia.com, and Vanderbilt.edu. Here are some other headlines. The Trump administration is looking to reboot artificial intelligence, unveiling new policies aimed at what it calls woke AI, in a move seen as an extension of the culture war. The White House will require tech companies with federal contracts to ensure their AI systems are free from top-down ideological bias. The plan defines this bias as including concepts like diversity, equity, and inclusion. This follows controversies like Google's AI image generator, creating historically inaccurate, diverse depictions of America's founding fathers. While some in the tech world welcome the push for deregulation, others worry the policy could undermine years of work aimed at mitigating actual racial and gender bias found in some AI systems. In a rare and tense encounter, President Trump paid a visit to the Federal Reserve, the first by a sitting president in nearly 2 decades. The visit highlighted the public feud between Trump and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. A key point of contention was the cost of the Fed's ongoing renovations. In a tense on-camera exchange, the president claimed the project cost had ballooned to $3.1 billion, a figure Powell corrected, creating a debate over dollars and cents. Trump also used the visit to repeat his demand for lower interest rates, though he told reporters he did not think it was necessary to fire the Fed chair, whom he had previously called a, quote, numbskull. The visit has sparked concern among economists about political interference with the independent institution. Order in the court is out for more than 50 immigration judges who have been terminated since President Trump began his second term. Now, many of those fired judges are vowing to take their own case to the court of public opinion and the legal system. They claim they were targeted for reasons ranging from gender discrimination to giving a courthouse tour to a Democratic senator. The union representing the nation's immigration judges is fighting the dismissals, arguing they will only worsen the nearly 4 million case backlog. Critics say the firings are part of a broader effort to undermine the independence of the courts and fast-track deportations. The president is touting a deal that's big in Japan, announcing a, quote, massive trade and investment agreement. Trump claims Japan has pledged to invest $550 billion in the U.S. in exchange for reduced American tariffs. The deal would also reportedly open Japanese markets to more American cars and agricultural products. However, the details appear to be a bit lost in translation. Japanese officials have been more reserved, indicating the funds involve state-affiliated credit facilities, and the deal still needs approval from Japan's parliament. It remains unclear how much of the $500 billion figure represents new investment, leaving the final impact of the ambitious plan yet to be seen. Finally, if you're wondering where your mail is, you might blame the U.S. Postal Service's sweeping new overhaul. The Delivering for America plan, designed to cut costs, has led to widespread mail delays across the country. The plan involves consolidating mail processing from local post offices into large, centralized megacenters. But the rollout has been chaotic in cities like Atlanta and Richmond, causing service to plummet. The plan to streamline operations has hit a few. Roadblocks, drawing bipartisan condemnation from lawmakers concerned about the impact on their constituents, especially in rural areas. In response to the pressure, Postmaster General Louis DeJoy has paused any further consolidation until at least January 2025. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.